Today is about satisfaction, about being enough. Are you enough already?
Yes.
And are you satisfied already?
Yes.
Well, now there's a little hesitation there. Megan was going to start the service off with, "I can't get no satisfaction by the Rolling Stones." I stopped her. No, she wasn't going to do that. My sister spent a week with the Rolling Stones last year, and she told me there were 3 things about these guys. The first thing is that they're all really short. The second is that they're all really old. She said, those the dried apple puppets? She said, all of them. She said that the third thing, though, was that they really enjoy life. And when they were up on stage, she said they were doing things 10 years older than she that she wouldn't even dream of doing. And they kept it up for the entire concert. And she said what they do is they put on disguises and then they walk around in the neighborhoods and they just have a great time. Now, I'm not saying you should emulate Keith Richards. But I am saying that there is something to be said for finding your satisfaction. And there's only one place you can find it. Jesus said, "Seek first the kingdom, and all these things will be added unto you." Seek first the kingdom. What were you taught about this kingdom of heaven? Were you told that it was a place you go when you die if you join a church or you get religious or you do something? There's no place in the entire Bible. Even the people who teach that the Bible should be taken literally, I defy them to show me one place where Jesus said, "Heaven's a place you go when you die." What did he say it was? Within you. It's that inner spirit in your heart. And it's always there. Heaven's always there. Together? Heaven's always there. And I am always there. Together? And I am always there. That heaven is already there. It's already present. You're already there. You're already present. You are enough already. You are worthy exactly as you are. The kingdom of heaven is within you. He also said something else that's very strange. He said the kingdom of heaven is among you. And if you really look at the word for among, it meant it's a shared experience. It's like a Venn diagram. There's you, there's me, and what's this thing in the middle that we shade in when we were kids? That's the kingdom of heaven. That's what we hold in common. And that's why where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of them. When we join together in a room like this, when we reach out to a loved one or somebody that really can support us, when we can go get therapy or go to a 12-step meeting, then we get to experience a little of that kingdom of heaven because there's that which we hold in common. So what does it take for you to be satisfied? Well, there was a Zen teacher who once just put up his finger like this and said, "What in this moment is lacking?" And then he just sat down. That was it. I wish I could get away with that. But what in this moment is lacking for you? Nothing. Nothing. You say, but the conditions of the world. The conditions of the world. I've been ministering for 40 years, and there's always been conditions in the world. You say, yeah, but not these conditions. No, different conditions. Maybe there's more writing on things. Maybe there are some things that are very serious that are going on. But Jesus said, you will always have the poor among you, which is a metaphor for the fact that you're always going to be dealing with conditions in your world. But the question is, are you living from your life conditions, or are you living your life? I am living my life. Together? I am living my life. And where is your life found? Here in your heart. I have a good heart. Together? I have a good heart. I am my good heart. Together? I am my good heart. You're good inside. But they told you you weren't. You know why they told you you weren't. This is my wonderful nerd talk about where that whole concept came from. But if you ever talk to a rabbi and you talk to them about original sin, a rabbi whose book is Genesis, the rabbi should know, will tell you, what are you talking about? How did you get that out of that? It doesn't exist. It's not anywhere in there. Where did it come from? Well, I was doing a christening once. And most of the christenings we do in our church are from people who don't attend our church, but their home church won't let them do a christening because of life conditions for them. So what do? They come here. And what do? I tell them that the baby doesn't need to be christened to be okay, but that it's a really good thing to christen the baby. The baby's open to it, it's receptive to it, it's a real blessing for the baby. But the baby's already good. You are already good. And I had a guy come up to me afterwards, one of these, and he wasn't challenging and he wasn't offended at all. In fact, he rather liked what I said. He said, "Sounds like you don't believe in original sin." And I said, "Neither did Jesus. Neither did any of the disciples or even St. Paul. None of them. There's no record of any belief that we were basically bad or depraved or negative or terrible inside until St. Augustine, which is a wonderful town for a vacation in Florida, but not necessarily someone that you need to listen to in this area. And this is a little nerd talk here, but it gives some people some comfort, especially you nerds out there. Don't raise your hand. The truth is that back at the time of St. Augustine, there were two factions in the church. One was led by the biggest one. 2 out of 3 bishops were in this faction, and they were led by a wonderful, happy Celtic priest from Ireland named Pelagius. Don't you just want to hang out with him? Don't you want to be on his side? I mean, he's this happy Irish priest, and he thought people were basically good, and he taught it. And he said, yeah, we make mistakes, but we are not mistakes. We're basically good. And there was this other guy, St. Augustine, who was a brilliant man and had many good things to say, but not this one. He came in to Christianity from another belief system, Manichaeism, which believed in good and evil both equal in the world. And he took a little of that with him, but the real hang-up was, and he wrote about it in his diaries, all the way up to the moment he died, that he was doing something sexually that he felt guilty about, and he never said what it was, but whatever it was, he felt bad about it and never stopped doing it. And so he took that guilt, whatever that guilt was he was feeling, and he projected it into Christianity for the first time. And so there was a vote taken. Why was there a vote taken? Well, if you were the emperor and you wanted absolute power, wouldn't it be kind of handy to tell everybody that they were basically not okay? Because what would they need? A God-appointed ruler. So he made all the bishops meet together in a convocation, and then he surrounded them with a Praetorian guard, whom he bribed with Nubian stallions. And they voted the right way, even though, and by the way, where did I get this from? The Catholic Encyclopedia in 1979. It's not in the new version, but it's in the 1979 Post-Vatican II version. And this is what happened, and they voted for the idea that people are basically not good. But you are basically good. You are the love of God expressing. And if you can get in touch with that, Jesus said, get in touch with the kingdom of heaven, and all these things will be added unto you, meaning everything good will roll out from it. You see, there are conditions in the world, and they're negative. How in the world are you ever going to help those conditions if you don't think you're basically good and okay? You say, I want to make changes in my life. Well, if you don't think you're basically good at your core, it's very, very hard to make changes. It's much easier to make changes when you know that you're basically okay and that you can change. Self-hate, the feeling that you're basically not okay, is not anything that's transformative at all. It's limiting. And we have to let go of that. So what do? How do you say, well, how do I get that feeling? You know, I was taught this. What do I do to unlearn it? My mentor many years ago, back in the 1990s, was a psychiatrist named Dr. Mary Allen, and she was one of the founders of cognitive behavioral therapy out in California, and she was this wonderful mystic. And I worked with her every week, and she said the number one thing, the most important thing there is for any individual is their core assumption. That's what she called it, the core assumption. She said, what do you believe at the core of you about yourself? If you think you're basically good, then that'll roll out. If you think you're basically bad, well, that'll roll out too, and you get misogyny and sexism and all kinds of abuse and sociopathy and all kinds of stuff if you think you're basically not okay. But if you think you're basically good, it'll roll out. My favorite author, my favorite novelist when I was a teenager in the Youth of Unity was a beatnik. His name was Jack Kerouac. How many people know who Jack Kerouac was? Yeah. And he wrote On the Road, and he wrote Dharma Bums, and after he died, they found a manuscript. It's the best biography of the Buddha. It's called Wake Up, that I've ever read, and Jason is reading it now. But he had a little problem with the idea that he was basically good. You see, when I was in the Youth of Unity, me and my best friend in the Youth of Unity in San Jose used to read our Jack Kerouac books, and we'd say, which character are you? And the character, there were two characters in the book. One was actually a fictionalized version of himself, and the other was a fictionalized version of a guy named Neil Cassidy, who my sister actually knew and said that he was the first man she'd ever met that actually was the kind of man that her dad warned her against. But we would talk. We'd go to the Southern Pacific freight yards in San Jose, and we'd play music, and we talk about all these things. Turns out, I found out years later that they attended our church. They both went to Unity in San Jose. They went 10 years earlier. Not only that, Neil Cassidy's ashes are in the Rose Garden at Unity Village. But they had a different experience at it. Neil Cassidy liked it because he basically thought he was a good person. He believed that. But Jack Kerouac said no, he felt he believed in original sin, which makes a heck of a Buddhist. But anyway, he believed in original sin, and out of that he drank himself to death. If you believe that you're basically good, if you believe that you're basically a child of God, that you're wholeness expressing, that you're enough already, that you're worthy, that your heart is good, then that will roll out. Now what about the conditions of the world? We're going to do a little work during our prayer time for the people in the Gulf. And Jesus said you should take care of the sick and that you should feed the hungry. But he also said the poor you'll always have with you, which may sound cold, but it's just a fact. You're always going to have conditions in the world that we have to deal with. And you're the kind of people who've been praying. I know you have, everyone in this room, for the people in the Gulf who are dealing with this. Why? Because it's your contribution from the goodness of who you are, from the goodness of your heart. And next week, when there's some other condition, and there will be, you're going to pray for that. And every condition that's in the world, in your friend's world, you're going to do the work that's yours to do. And you won't do it from a standpoint of, I'm not okay, I'm not worthy. You're going to do it from a standpoint of, I'm basically good, I'm basically worthy. I have that love of God, that peace of God in my heart, because I am the being of God expressing. But the question is, where do you identify yourself, and where do you live your life from? Which brings me to my balloons. How many people have seen my balloons? Raise your hand. Now last week I turned them over, so this is a different take on them, but there's be, do, and have. And this, it's so simple, but I don't know about you. I forget this. I forget this every day of my life. And so I have to remind myself that having is not enough. Doing is not enough. What makes me enough? Being. What do you call it when you have everything that you could possibly have? Well, you call it materialism, I guess. I remember many years ago I went to a ministers' conference in Las Vegas. Yes, in Southern California, they sent you to Las Vegas to go to a ministers' conference. And they sent you to the Riviera Hotel in those days. And I showed up at the front desk and they said, we're all out of rooms. I said, I have a reservation. And the guy cracked up. He says, yeah, we're all out of rooms, but I'll give you the presidential suite. It's the last room we got. And he started laughing, handed me the keys, and I went into this palatial, 2 walk-in tubs and 5 televisions, and it was fantastic. But it was nothing compared to the guy I found out a few years later who was living upstairs at that very moment. His name was Howard Hughes. And he was miserable. Why?
He had it.
You have everything. So you can, let's say right now you say, Greg, you're talking about being, in touch with my being and all that, but it's not enough. I got an answer I need in my life. There are conditions in the world that need to change. Ask yourself this question. If you could live without one of these 2 things, the experience of being in you and that answer that you're looking for, which could you live without? The answer is the thing in the outer world. Conditions do change, but the thing that you really need is your own being, the sense of your own being. And then, as Jesus said, all the things will be added unto you. It isn't that you turn your back on it. It's that the only place that you can make change, paradoxically, as ironically as it may seem, is coming from that being that's basically good. But having everything, no, it's not going to do it for you, even if it's a good thing. That doesn't mean you should involve yourself and involve Spirit with every need you have, from your taxes to your shoes to your grocery list. That's important, but let it be an expression of the being that flows through your doing, and then you have, but this will always change. Well, what about this though? Don't you want to do? I want to do. I want to help. I want to go and accomplish and do great things. But what do you call doing run amok? Workaholism? Burnout? Have you ever heard of a person with too much being? Doesn't exist. You can't be too much. You can just be and be and be and be. But you can do too much. You can have too much, have an attitude that's attached. But that beingness, that beingness is enough. It's sufficient. It's all I need. Beingness is all I need. Together, beingness is all I need. And then you set your goals. But they don't come from a sense of self-hate and lack. They don't come from a sense of unworthiness and not enoughness. It comes from a sense of, I'm worthy exactly as I am, and I'm going to accomplish this. And changes. You can never change effectively from a place of lack in the sense that you're not okay. If you're okay, you'll change naturally. But you can never change from that sense of self-hate or sense of not being good inside. It takes a sense of, yes, I am worthy. But again, you're saying, well, how do I get that sense of it? Well, my mentor, Dr. Mary Allen, who taught me this thing many years ago, who gave me this language of it, said, assume that you're basically good and then see what rolls out of it. Assume that you're basically good. Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. So know that that love is within yourself. And then see what shows up. And what shows up? What shows up is that expression of being that moves and flows, so that your doing and your having is an expression of that being, and you're in alignment with that being. So here's a thought. Maybe it takes the consciousness of being as a child in order to experience this beingness. As a child. You know, children are in touch with being naturally. Whatever they are doing when they're young enough, they're being. They're just being. And their doing comes from their being. And they're having, it comes and it goes. And they might cry, but their being is enough. I remember when Jason was in second grade, maybe third, he was in a school. And it was a Montessori school, so it was pretty loose, but it wasn't loose enough for Jason. He wanted to play. And so he would play. And he would, they take away whatever he was playing with. He'd have a scrap of paper, and he'd tell himself stories, and he'd play with that. And they took away the scraps of paper, and it got to the point, the teacher told us, where Jason would play with specks of dust. And he told us he was telling himself stories about him. He's now an honor student, straight A's, and he got it together, but he's got that, he had that attitude of play, that attitude of I'm enough exactly as I am. Together? I'm enough exactly as I am. Jesus said, come to God as a child. That's the kingdom of heaven, is the attitude of a child. But what about your need? You say, well, I want to experience healing. I need in my life. But because a child has that spontaneity of their being, they're open to healing better than adults are. How many people have prayed for a kid and had some success? Raise your hand. You know what I'm talking about? Kids are open. Dogs are too. Kids are open to this because they're in touch with their being. Back many years ago, about almost 40 years ago, I was the adult in charge of a Youth of Unity summer camp that was held in the mountains of Southern California. And I was the person in charge of the medical thing, I guess, because I was had been an ambulance attendant years before. So whenever somebody had an owie or a boo-boo, they'd bring them to me. Well, I had a very interesting experience. I would have, if I was sitting in your seat, I'd have a hard time believing what I'm about to tell you, except for I lived it, so it really did happen. What happened was that there was a girl who tripped, and she tripped on some rocks, and she twisted her ankle terribly, and they had to carry her in. They put her down on the little table, and her ankles was swelling up. And I was I put some ice, I packed it, I was doing the physical work for it, and then all of a sudden somebody came in and said, we got somebody, you got to come here right away. I said, well, I'm attending to her. No, this is an emergency. So I told her, I said, you tell your ankle to shrink and just tell your ankle, talk to your ankle, okay? She says, shrink, ankle, shrink, ankle. I said, but you can do it silently. So she said, oh, okay. So she doing this, and I left. And it turns out at the same time there was a little boy who had, some of the other kids had scared. They'd gotten a big bug, a dead bug, and he was in the top bunk. And they thrust it in his face just to kind of scare him, and he whooped like this right onto a beam. And at the time that I got to him, one half of his face was drooping. He was talking. At first they thought he was just joking when he was talking with the slurred words and stuff, and then they realized it was serious. So they came and got me. Now we were 2 hours from the nearest hospital. So I was ready to get him in the car and everything. Suddenly I realized there was the little girl. So I went back and I said, how's it feeling? She says, oh, it's fine. And I looked down and the ankle was the same size as the other ankle. And she said, and I think this was to strengthen my faith. And so she got up and jumped down on the ankle. And when I said, no, you can walk, she walked, but she didn't have a limp, and she had no more problems after that. And I saw the size of that ankle, and she couldn't walk before that. So anyway, we got into the car, and there were 4 of us. And all the way there, we did the affirmations and the Gift of Healing meditation CD that we got. All these specific affirmations over and over again for 2 hours. But by the time we got there, he was totally normal. His face stopped drooping. He wasn't slurring his words. He was a little bit tired, that's it. So we went into the emergency room, and there was somebody there with the black widow spider bite that they were all worried about. That's not life-threatening. You know, his situation looked a lot worse 2 hours before, but they took one look at him. They did the thing with the flashlight in the eyes, and they said he doesn't have a concussion. He's totally normal. So they took about 3 hours to go to see him, because there were all these other people who had serious problems. And we finally got back late that night. Now, what happened here? Nobody told these kids that they were not the expression of pure being. They had been raised in unity and knew they were basically good in their soul and their heart. And when we told them, you can talk to your ankle, when we told them, you can affirm these things, they listened. And it worked. Now, in your life, there's a part of you that is that child that's within you, that part of you that knows exactly that you are basically good. You're worthy. You're enough. You are the love of God. You have a good heart. You are the good heart of God. And that good heart of your being is ready to express. So I think we can take this energy that we've generated together, knowing that our core is basically good, and we can put it to bear for the people in the Gulf Coast area. And we know that we've got something to offer them now. So just close your eyes. Just take into this now moment experience the sense that I am a good heart. I am enough. I am worthy. I am the love of God expressing. And now I just take that whole area in the Gulf, and I know that that shared experience between me and all those people is the kingdom of heaven, is the light and love of God, that they too have good hearts. So I say thank you, God, for meeting their physical needs and touching their hearts and lifting them up and giving them an expression of pure being, of the goodness of their hearts, that they feel that love, that they are deeply and completely loved. And we say thank you, God, that every need is met, the means are being provided, and guide us in the very best way that we can support physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually every soul. We pray this for the conditions of this world. The conditions at this point where where there seems to be a lot riding on things. But we know the goodness of our heart. And we know the goodness of the heart of humanity. And we know, even for those who don't know it for themselves, that every child of God is whole and free and perfect. At the very core, at the very essence of their being. And so we do this work. And we do the work that's ours to do day by day, week by week, and month by month, knowing that the essence of our being knows what to do. Thank you, dear God. And so it is. And let's just breathe in and breathe out and experience our enoughness. That we're enough exactly as we are. We're enough exactly who we are. We are the love of God expressing. God loves me exactly as I am. Take another deep breath. And just get into your heart and know I am enough exactly as I am because my heart is enough. In my heart, I am already worthy of the kingdom. As I move deeply into my heart, I move deeply into a sense of being satisfied, deep in my soul. I take another deep breath, and I let go into the trust of this now moment. In this moment, what is lacking? I am already one with God. My heart is a good heart. Because my heart is good, I'm already one with God. I am a good person. And I feel the deep satisfaction of God in my heart. I have a good heart. And I am my good heart. In this now moment, everything I need is provided here and now. I feel such a sense of calm peace. I let the world around me go. And I move into that kingdom of heaven that he said was within. Already within. Nothing needs to change for me to experience this kingdom right now, right here. I am my good heart, and I am deeply loved. I feel the deep satisfaction of my soul. I am my good heart. And I know that whatever I need in my world, or whatever this world needs from me, comes from this presence of pure being. I am already worthy. I am already satisfied. I am already one with my good heart. for me to be satisfied is to rest in my heart and know that I am good. I have a good heart. I am worthy. I am enough. I am my good heart. This is the kingdom of heaven within me. And everything good rolls out from this. I know this to be true. And so it is. Well, we're going to take our offering now, and we're going to give from the enoughness of us. So I give from my enoughness and I receive abundantly. Together, I give from my enoughness and I receive abundantly. And silently. And again aloud together. I give from my enoughness and I receive abundantly. And so it is. Amen.